NASCAR took to the streets of Chicago this weekend where we saw Shane Van Gisbergen dominate the Xfinity Series race, ends up having a great battle with Kyle Larson, and those two drivers look to be the favorites on Sunday as well for the Cup Series race, but unfortunately they both got taken out, leaving open the opportunity for Alex Bowman to take home the victory. Let's recap the Cup race. It started under weather, and that was the big theme for the day. Teams had the opportunity to choose whether they wanted to start on wet tires or the slicks, and that's an opportunity that they've not had before. Once he got the lead, it was all SVG in stage one. The weather picked up and the pace slowed down at the end of the stage, and tire strategy came into play. Certain guys pitted early to take the wet weather tires before pit road closed, and other guys were trying to get there just at the end of the stage. Ultimately, it ended up leading to everybody being on wet weather tires at the end of that stage and starting stage two. Competitive pit stops were the feature of that stage break, something that we've not seen before with a soaked pit road. And it ended up leading to a lot of bottlenecking at the end of pit road due to the jet dryers trying to keep the track dry under the wet conditions. Several cars stacked up, including Tyler Reddick, who ran into the back of his teammate, Bubba Wallace. It seemed like there was going to be no choose as they went to restart stage two as the weather was picking up, but they did end up choosing, which led to a lot of confusion and chaos on the restart. Cars were spinning everywhere, including the 14 of Chase Briscoe into the dominant car of the day, the 16 of Shane Van Gisbergen. It ended up crashing him into the wall, taking him out for the remainder of the event. And he stated under the red flag that he was absolutely gutted that took place. A shame for Shane, as he had a great opportunity and a great race car to win. The rain picked up and the red came out with the car covers. There was over an hour and a half red flag delay, and they restarted with some cars on a one-stop strategy up front, guys like Zane Smith and others. NASCAR gives the official stop time of the race, which is something that we've not seen before. We've seen laps countdown, but never an actual time limit. Christopher Bell takes the lead on a soggy restart. We saw several cars caution-free spinning on their own without bringing out a yellow, before we saw the 5 of Kyle Larson buried into the tire barriers, effectively ending his day. The two favorites of the day, Shane Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson, would finish last and second to last on the day due to their misfortune. It seemed like every single Stewart-Haas race car was involved in some form of a wreck, and that's because they actually were all involved in some form of wreck. Joey Hand ends up winning stage two at 8:55 p.m., the first time in NASCAR history we've seen two non-full-time drivers win the first two stages. It ended up being a dash to the finish with darkness approaching. About 20 minutes left of green flag racing. Joey Hand and Alex Bowman elect to stay out on the old wet weather tires to maintain their track position and just hope for the best, as many drivers ended up pitting for slicks. We had more single car spins before the 4 of Josh Berry crashed and effectively brought out the yellow that ended up winning the race for Alex Bowman, preserving his track position as guys on slick tires were coming fast. The ones that were still on the wets kept searching all around the racetrack for water to try to keep their tires cool and maintain their grip. And it ended up being the 45 of Tyler Reddick that was running down Bowman for the lead. He was closing fast. It looked like he was going to get there and make a real race out of it, but he ends up tagging the wall, taking himself out of contention for the win, and Alex Bowman ends up cruising to victory. Under the cool-down lap, we had a couple different incidents, one being the 23 of Bubba Wallace retaliating against race winner Alex Bowman, slamming him in the door, and we also saw Chase Elliott hitting Daniel Suarez after he was spun by him in those closing laps as well.
Okay, in the Xfinity Series, Kyle Larson and SVG put on a show for the first half of the race, trading the lead back and forth. Shane Van Gisbergen winning stage one. Stage two was won by Austin Hill. They had the through pit strategy and stuff, Larson and SVG kind of got caught back in traffic, but SVG raced his way up through the field and came back to take the win. We definitely had the most dominant car.
Speaking of the Xfinity Series race, let's look at the point situation as we're kind of nearing the end of the regular season here shortly. What do the points look like? Who's leading? Who's near the cut line? Who's going to make the playoffs in the Xfinity Series?
let's see. I hope I got the wrong tab pulled up. All right, so for the regular season championship, Cole Custer leads Justin Allgaier by 38 points. Chandler Smith's 39 points behind. Austin Hill 60 behind. So Jesse Love in fifth is 109 points behind for the regular season championship. So that's a little far for him, I think, to reach there. But I guess the biggest factor in all this is the playoff line, where Sammy Smith is the 12th and final driver for the Xfinity Series and 23 points above the cut line, above Ryan Sieg. Brandon Jones is 67 points behind, and Anthony Alfredo is 85 points behind. There are 6 races left. I mean, mathematically they could make that up, but it'd be really tough. So I think I say Ryan Sieg would be the only chance of probably being able to point his way in. I haven't seen Sammy Smith running that well, and Sieg has been showing promise in a few races, running top 10. So, but more than likely, Brandon Jones on down will need a win to advance.
Brandon Jones has faced some tough luck recently here with some of his finishes as well. What about the Cup point standings? What do they look like?
Let's see. So for the regular season championship, Kyle Larson leads, even while missing a race.
So Kyle Larson leads, finished second to last yesterday, and is still the points leader. That's incredible. He's had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, he's got 11 over Chase, who lost 10 points in the final corner of the race last night. But Tyler Reddick is behind 23. Denny Hamlin down by 42. I see all the top 4 there legitimately have a chance at this. Martin Truex Jr. in 5th, 70 behind. And he's the only one up there in the top 8 or so that hasn't had a win yet. I was kind of looking at that when it comes to the playoff part of the picture. Because he's 13th out of 16 drivers, so there's 6 races left. The odds of that many people winning and jumping over him are slim, but not impossible.
True.
But the cut line, Chris Buescher is the final driver in. Bubba Wallace is 45 points behind. Chase Briscoe 88 behind, and Kyle Busch 98 behind. So there's everybody from the cut line now has got a lot of work to do. So it's more likely looking to win or not.
It's impressive that Christopher Bell was in such great positions week after week to win races, and then it just seems like he's not even remotely a factor for a win here in the last several weeks. Bubba Wallace struggling to put together good finishes, not all to his own doing. He had some issues in the street race as well with being made contact on pit road. Bowman getting him turned around. Definitely had some struggles there, but still the finishes are what matters, and he's not being able to put those together really well. I don't think that there's any chance Kyle Busch makes this unless he wins.
Yeah.
And it
it's
would have
kind of hard to see that even at this point.
It would have to be a miraculous fashion. It would have to be some sort, like Joey Logano did, to where you're staying out with some fuel strategy or some tire strategy or something along that line for Kyle Busch to make it in on a win, in my opinion. I just don't see that happening there. You got any bold predictions for the playoffs? What do you think of the guys that are close to the cut line? Who do you think is going to be in, who's going to be out?
Yeah, I think as it is what I see. The only Bubba Wallace could put on a performance.
He could.
He's the only one that I could see that might make it in.
You have more confidence in him or Kyle Busch making the playoffs?
Bubba Wallace for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that if one were to fall out, do you think it would be Bubba or the 17, Buescher?
Well, the Ross and Christopher are the bottom 2. I'd say more likely Buescher would fall out at this point.
You could see Buescher falling out and Bubba getting in.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's what, 6 races remaining?
Yes.
Before the playoffs start in the Cup Series, and we do have a 2-week break for the Olympics as well. That's going to be interesting to see what that break does for teams gathering information, making their cars better, and how that all works. Especially as we go into Pocono. We don't really have any normal tracks that we're facing here coming up. Everything's kind of its own unique animal here for a little bit of this stretch. Let's kind of talk through the race a little bit and what we saw. Having the option to start with whatever tire you preferred. What did you think about that? Did you think that was a good move by NASCAR, bad move by NASCAR? inconsistent move by NASCAR. I can say that I was annoyed by it at first. Like, why are we spending now giving the crew chiefs the opportunity to pick these tires?
Yeah.
Why is it happening right now when I feel like we've had this ability already? And then after I kind of digested that a little bit, I was like, this is a growing process. NASCAR's learning to race in the rain and in these damp conditions. I like this move. I think this is progress. I think this is a positive thing. This is where we ultimately wanted to see him get, in my opinion, for a lot of the crew chiefs to make their own decisions, and I liked that.
Yeah, I mean, usually to start the race, even in other series, I think you're required one or the other. Mm-hmm. Whereas this week you could choose which one to start on. That was where I was confused at, but definitely afterwards, once the track would dry out or stuff, you could definitely get to choose where to go. But
yeah, I like that for sure. Let's talk for a minute about Shane Van Gisbergen. Is he the best road course racer in NASCAR?
I'd say yes.
I don't know how you argue that. Here's the other thing. Do you think that AJ Allmendinger is just like completely fallen off a cliff?
It seems like it for sure.
It's like his confidence is totally gone. He used to be the top dog when it came to road racing in NASCAR not that long ago. And then Shane Van Gisbergen shows up in AJ who?
Yeah.
Like every single race he struggles, he crashes, he just has issues in every single one. You saw him wreck it Sunday in the Cup car. And I mean, I know that Shane did too, but it wasn't of his own doing. It just AJ just lost control, pushing too hard to try to make up some positions. I just feel like he feels that the pressure is on, and everything is just coming to Shane so naturally, and having the ability to compete. That race wasn't even in question yesterday with Shane. I mean, he was going to be the dominant driver.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't have the best car. Kyle Larson, I'm pretty sure, had the best car.
Yeah.
But Shane just had the ability to pass people whenever he wanted. He set guys up well. Larson even made the comment that he does a great job at racing you without making contact. I don't know that I'd say he never made any contact, but he raced very clean, all things considered. And you got to really appreciate that about the guy. I know that people can sometimes get wound up about somebody coming from a different country into your American racing sport and kind of kicking everybody's butt, but I got nothing but respect for the guy. I think he's awesome. I think he's the most talented driver at road course racing, certainly in NASCAR, maybe in the world. I don't know. I don't know who would be better. What he's doing with inferior equipment is very impressive to me. Cars that don't run well week in and week out are running really well at these road courses, and I'm super impressed with him.
Yeah, most definitely.
I hate to see that bad luck for him in the Cup race. I was really looking forward to him sweeping the weekend, and that was going to be a great story to talk about. But unfortunately, that didn't end up panning out due to the issues that he faced getting wrecked. Really disappointing for him. Let's talk about another guy that's going to be really disappointed, and that is Tyler Reddick. Had the fastest car at the end of the race, being on the slick tires. I thought with, as that clock was ticking down with probably 2 minutes to go, that there was no chance that anybody was catching Alex Bowman.
Yeah.
It was Alex Bowman's race to lose. And then all of a sudden, you saw that gap shrink and shrink in a hurry. And Reddick was coming, and he was going to catch him. And as I'm watching that, they're approaching the white flag, and I'm like, he's going to get there.
Yeah.
Whether or not he passes him or not, he is going to get there. And as they go, was that turn 6?
It was before turn 6, where the kink of 3 and 4. I don't know where the numbers are, but that was.
He ends up scraping the wall on the passenger side door, killing all his momentum and losing the opportunity that he had to race up against Alex.
Even Bowman off of 5 scraped the wall just a little bit.
Yeah, I saw that.
But Reddick must have hit it harder behind him. That was.
That's what ultimately did him in, and Tyler Reddick might need to be on suicide watch this week.
Well, one thing about Tyler Reddick, I almost see the same thing between Tyler Reddick and Kyle Larson. They're probably two of the most talented drivers out there, but it always seems like when it comes to push, they overdo it at points.
Yeah.
Like Larson overcooked it into the corner of turn 6, and you see in other races where Larson at the end drives it a little too hard at points. And I kind of saw earlier at this year at Sonoma Reddick when he was fighting Larson off of a pit road strategy, and he overcooked his corner, overcooked the corner, flat spotting his tire. Where if he'd have just raced it out, he may have been able to come back and win or fight with Larson. So I feel like it's one of those deals where he just pushes a little too hard at the wrong moments.
Yeah, I think some of those guys rely on their talent and exceed the limits of the race car when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And think that they can carry the car and not understanding that, the car's a big factor of whether or not you're going to be able to race up next to the guy in front of you or not. So, yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on Tyler Reddick, just making sure that he's all good in the mental state of things. What about how heavy it was raining when we saw them go back to green to start stage 2? Do you think they should have been back to green there? Or do you think that there was just too much water to be racing?
I mean, obviously, hindsight's 20/20. There was definitely too much water. I mean, seeing that camera angle, them coming down the front stretch, you see the first 2 or 3 cars, and all you see is mist behind it. So
I don't understand how they couldn't see that prior to the green flag. Is kind of my issue with that. I want to be racing. I know they've got a hard stop. This Chicago street course is a very limited situation that NASCAR's put in. I get it. You got to go racing as much as you can. But I feel like we were outside our limits at that point.
The whole biggest thing of this weekend was the start time.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 o'clock Eastern time. I mean, 4 there. I mean, it just...
I get it. There's a lot of factors that go into the start time of the race. And people are making a lot of excuses for NASCAR for what time this race started. But I don't know how you can. I mean, you can't start that race that late.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. If you're going to do concerts, do them before or after or both or whatever. But I understand it was an event, and that's great. But the event needs to be around the racing. I mean, that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
You're so... Racing on Monday is not an option without a big check behind it. And you obviously can't race into the darkness, so you're right. I mean, you got to get this thing going. I understand that the forecast didn't call for very much rain, but at the same point, I mean, you're on the shore of a lake. You got to know that weather can change in a hurry. And this is only the second time they've ever been here doing this. I get all that, but at the same point, you got to hedge your bets in that situation, and I think that they definitely should have started that race sooner. Like you said, hindsight's 20/20, but I think that you have to take that into consideration beforehand.
Yeah.
So that part was a little frustrating and disappointing. Ultimately, I think they did what they could with the situation that they were in. If all things being equal and you had to start that race at 5 o'clock, I think that they managed from green to checker the best they could.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't like the fact that they threw a timer on the race, and that's an unprecedented thing, and blah, blah, blah. But this whole thing is unprecedented.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they could have done better. Like, I don't like the consistency factor of just throwing a clock on it. But at the same point, that was the right answer.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, they already had a time set before the race, I think.
Right.
So I think that's probably the best way they've handled these tracks with no lights. Like, at New Hampshire, when I believe Eric Almirola won this race.
Yeah.
When Christopher Bell was chasing him down, they just said, "All right, 10 to go right here." So it's definitely setting a time beforehand is a lot better than what has been done in the past. So.
I agree. I can remember that there was a race back in 1996. I believe it was at Talladega, and darkness was coming, and Jeff Gordon ended up winning the race. But they basically said, when we go back to green, you got 6 laps left, and that changed the whole dynamic of the race.
Yeah.
So things like that, I don't like that. I don't like guys having certain strategies play out and then NASCAR changing the rules on a mid-race. Very much more in favor of, hey, this is our hard stop. This is when we're done. The one thing that I was a little confused on with the clock running out, I thought it would work like in motocross, where the clock runs out, it's 2 to go, then when the leader takes the line, that's the last lap. That's essentially how it worked, but as soon as Bowman crossed the start-finish line after the clock ran out, it's like they let all the lead lap cars pass the start-finish line and then put 2 to go out.
I thought they got to white. After the clock hit 0, that was the 2 to go. Then he crossed the line, 2 to go, and then they got the white flag.
I'd have to double check it, but I'm pretty sure that he crossed the line, the clock was expired, and it was then 2 to go. I could double check that one to be sure, but I was thinking that the clock expired. I saw him go past the flag stand. The flagman did not wave the white flag.
Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. They got 2 to go when that was what was supposed to happen. The clock was going to run out. And then the next lap was 2 to go.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so in motocross, though, it works a little differently. As soon as the clock runs out, that is the 2 to go lap. and then once you cross the line,
It's the white
flag there.
Yeah.
So, okay, I understand what was taking place now.
Yeah.
That's what I had in my head from knowing that about, Supercross racing. But that's obviously not what they were going for there. So that makes more sense then. I got that cleared up. But yeah, like I said, I think that they handled things as well as they could. The only issue is at the end of stage 2, I feel like that caution took forever. At the end of the stage to just get everybody organized and pit and all. It just seems like we have 23 minutes to go and we restarted with like 18 minutes to go.
Yeah.
It just seems like it shouldn't have taken 5 minutes for people to just, hey, come down pit road, pit, and we're going to go.
Yeah.
Just make your decision. It's a long racetrack to get all this stuff sorted out. I just wish that was cleaned up in a little more quick fashion that way. Let's talk about Alex Bowman for a second. The hack backs into another one. And I say that lightly. I mean, they put themselves in the right position. Yeah. They had Chad Knaus on the box, which was certainly the secret weapon.
I mean, he finished top 10 both stages, so it wasn't like he was...
He was running well.
Yeah.
And he has been running well for several weeks now. It's not like he's been any sort of backmarker race car or anything like that. He's been somebody that's been running up near the front, and you could see him being in position to win a race here sooner or later, and he was today. Definitely a strategy call. Wasn't a driver talent thing to where he raced up through there, but he was in the right position at the right time and held off a hard-charging Tyler Reddick in order to get the win. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent toward Alex Bowman.
Yeah.
I don't like him, but I don't hate him. There's a lot of drivers that I would put on my hate list way above him. He's just kind of a whatever. He's very boring to me. I don't have any feeling of anything toward him. He just is somebody that, I don't know. That post-race interview was the most personality I've ever seen him show. When he said that he's likely to wake up on the bathroom floor naked this morning. Didn't really need to know that, but that was interesting. An interesting statement by him, and from what I understand, sounds like it was pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Sounds like he was partying pretty hard in Chicago. The Stewart-Haas cars, I don't know what the deal is with them, but they could not keep their cars on the racetrack. Every lap, somebody was off the racetrack, into a tire barrier, into a wall. That I don't even know why they showed up this week. It was just bad for them all the way around. The Bubba Wallace and Alex Bowman incident, I really didn't, in the moment when Bubba got spun around, didn't see that as anything more than a racing deal.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to discredit Bubba Wallace's complaint of saying that he got turned around. Bowman took ownership of the issue, said he was messing with his windshield wiper, which if that's the case, if you're inside or, whatever you want to say, if you're on the side of a race car, one or the other, why are you messing with that right then? Like, at least wait till a straightaway. Why are you playing with that in the corner? And it sounds like he just kind of messed that up and ran into Bubba and turned him around. A stupid mistake on Alex's part, and Bubba sure had right to be mad, but to slam a guy on a cool down lap, I don't like that from anybody, and I don't like it from Chase Elliott either when he did it to Daniel Suarez. I don't think there's any excuse to hit anybody in a non-racing lap. No excuse to right hook anybody for any reason. It's kind of my two lines. You don't hit anybody on pit road. You don't speed on pit road after the race. You don't hit race cars when you're not racing them under caution after the race, any of that. So I don't like the Bubba Wallace situation. I don't like the Chase Elliott situation. And people are going to freak out if Bubba Wallace gets a penalty and Chase Elliott doesn't.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Here's my thing. We saw, and I had to refresh my memory on this. We saw it with Martin Truex Jr. earlier this year at Richmond after he got moved out of the way or raced a little aggressively or whatever you want to say, and he came up and just drove his car into the back of Denny Hamlin after the checkered flag and had a little temper tantrum there. Just was no need for that. But there was no fine, no penalty, no nothing. Maybe there should be a monetary fine. I'm not necessarily arguing that. But if you didn't give Truex one, I don't see how you can give either of these guys one. Don't like it. Want to see that corrected. NASCAR needs to grab him by the shirt collar and say, don't be doing this anymore. But, yeah, I don't see how you can penalize
them. I can't think of any time in the past where after a race altercations like this that anybody's ever been penalized. So.
Yeah, I don't see that really being an issue. Anything else that you wanted to talk about from this race?
That's all I can really think of.
Can we smooch Shane Van Gisbergen anymore, or do you think that we've done enough for him? Let's talk a little bit about some of the news that came out this week. Josh Berry is going to be in the 21 car. I think that's a good fit for him. Glad to see him get that opportunity. Disappointed for Harrison Burton because I really thought that he had talent coming out of the Xfinity Series and definitely just has not shown a bit of it in Cup so far. I'm not sure where he'll land. Hope he gets another good opportunity to kind of rebuild his confidence in his career a little bit. But I will be interested to see what the performance of the 21 does when Josh Berry gets in it, because he's elevated the Stewart Haas cars in a year where they've all been down.
Yeah.
Just kind of curious to see where that all shakes out. You got any thoughts on that?
I'm about the same.
Hailie Deegan, there was an issue with her in AM Racing. They removed her from the race car. They put Joey Logano in this past week. He ended up finishing 8th in the Xfinity Series race in that car. I don't know. I mean, was there some strategy involved in that finish, or is that just where he ended up running?
I think that's where he ended up. I mean,
Okay.
he definitely was faster in that car than she would have been. But
Yeah.
I still think some things I've heard over radio communications, even at New Hampshire, there's been some odd radio communications between the crew chief and Hailie that race, and evidently Logano had to explain how to adjust his car or something, even at Chicago. So I want to say I don't think either one of them are on the right side of things. You can't really elevate your team with a rookie driver, and if you have a crew chief that's not completely competent, you got two things working against you. So
What kind of adjustments was he trying to make?
well, for Logano or whatever, it was something on the long run of the car. I think it was the car would tighten up or something as the tire pressures would go up, and the crew chief had to ask whether he wanted the tire pressures added or decreased, and Logano had to say, well, if it's on the end of the run, you got to decrease the air pressure. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
If it's changing over the course of a run and getting more uncomfortable, you got to have less air pressure in there so that it builds up over the course of the run to a lower pressure. Than, I mean, I could have done that. Hey, if that job's open, let me know. I don't know. Something's bad. I think that was a bad match no matter what.
Yeah.
Between that team and Hailie. I think she's got more talent than that team is allowing her to show, and obviously, I think that car can also run better than she was making it run too. So it's like you said, it's a double-edged sword there. I've heard. Who'd you say was going to be in it next week?
Josh Berry.
Josh
Yeah,
Berry.
we just talked about him.
Josh Berry is going to be in that car next week at Pocono, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
From the sounds of things, there's going to be probably a fill-in here and there for the rest of the year for it.
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, they parted ways. Hailie's not coming back to that car.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're definitely going to have somebody other than her driving that car the rest of the season. NASCAR showcased their electric vehicle this week at the racetrack. What did you think about that? Did you have any positive thoughts, negative thoughts? Didn't really care?
I don't really care. I mean, I don't think this is going to be like a NASCAR Cup Series replacement. If anything, I think they had the Formula E series. I don't know if it was for like an Indy car or a Formula One.
Yeah.
I meant to say Formula One.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if it's like some separate series they want to run or something, go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if I know, I always checked out the Formula E series if it was on or something, just curiosity. But it's nothing I ever really got into. I'm not gonna cry over there like some people are. I mean, if this came to an actual NASCAR, just electric cars, I don't know if I could sit through it.
Yeah.
I mean, even watching it on TV, you still hear the cars going by and stuff, and I don't think I could hear silence racing.
Yeah.
I
guess I have an issue with it, but it's not a major issue. One is, why are we working on this when our on-track product in our Premier Cup Series is struggling? That's the main issue that I have with that, is why are you dedicating resources to this project that nobody cares about? Nobody's asking for this.
Yeah.
When we are asking you to fix the Premier Series product, and you don't seem to be addressing that in any way whatsoever. So I've got a problem with it there.
Yeah, somebody said on DBC there was like a $1.5 million or something went into this.
Which is a low number for, developing a race car. But still, I don't know. I got a bit of an issue with that. My other thing with this, though, is this could be a positive if we take all the drag and all the technology and all of this other stuff, aerodynamics, and put it into that race car and give us back our giant engine, small tire, low drag race cars, and let us go racing again. Get rid of electronic fuel injection. I want to see a carburetor again. Just forget about the transaxle. Give me a regular 4-speed transmission in that thing.
Yeah.
Lengthen that back end out. Put the numbers back where they go. And let's go back racing the way that we were supposed to do it before we got to this point. That's my theory. Give us something a little closer to the Xfinity series than what we've got now. And dedicate your resources for the things that you think that fans want to see, which we do not care about. And put them over there with that electric vehicle. And let all you whiny little people that think that close racing is good racing, regardless of the amount of horsepower that there is, go watch that series, because I don't want to be friends with you. Just go watch that and let me have what I fell in love with growing up. Let me watch real racing. Okay, that's about enough of that topic. To close it out, let's talk about our picks for this week. I picked the man, the guy that was going to win the race, Shane Van Gisbergen, to end up getting the win. He finished where?
40th.
Oh, that couldn't be any worse. You could not finish worse than 40th in Chicago. Who did you pick?
Martin Truex Jr.
Oh, he must have finished great today.
33rd.
Not very good either. So neither one of our picks panned out very well, although they were running well at times during the race. And I think that's ultimately what I'm basing my pick off of, is who I think is going to run well and have an opportunity to win. Obviously, circumstances didn't play out that way. I would pick Shane Van Gisbergen 100 times out of 100 times to win that race, and just hope that nothing bad happened to him. Unfortunately, something bad happened to him. So what's this do to our point standings with each other?
We're tied up.
We're tied back up again. And I won 2 weeks ago with Christopher Bell at New Hampshire, getting 3 points instead of the standard 1. So it's a tight battle. I really didn't anticipate this being such a hot contest throughout the year. I thought somebody would be running away with it, and I was hoping that it would be me, but it is not. 6 races to go before the playoffs. This is going to get interesting, both in NASCAR's actual standings and our standings as well. So I'm looking forward to Pocono, which is something that I don't normally say because it's not a racetrack that I'm a big fan of, even though it's in our home state of Pennsylvania. Looking forward to see what we're going to see out of the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series, correct?
Yes.
We're going to see all 3 series at Pocono this weekend, and we will be back to recap it after the weekend.